podcast. And we are live. What is up, college lacrosse fans? This is LaxFactor Live, another pre-game stream here on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We do this every morning here now, so if you want to watch more of this, simply tune in. Don't be afraid. As people start to file in, we will ramble about some of the upcoming games here today. But what we're going to talk about today generally, so we can kind of give you an overview, is we have some big games. But the biggest game of the weekend, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people, is going to end up being Virginia at Syracuse. Syracuse started putting it on Army early in the game last weekend in their first outing, only to have Army completely shellac them and run them out of the dome after. So that was Syracuse's scrimmage. I was listening to a podcast today, Mark Dixon, what is it called? D-Fly and Dixie, or maybe Dixon is D-Fly. Either way, I was listening to their podcast, and I heard Tillman for Virginia talk about how they were lucky enough to have a scrimmage. I believe they made it sound like in late January, where they were actually losing to a Division III school. I can't remember who he said he played, but I remember thinking in my head, that's a D3 school, and they were losing at the end of the first half, and then they came back and won. But he talked about how so many of these teams have not had scrimmages, and when they're playing their first games, it's just a recipe for disaster, and that seemed to be the case for Syracuse. Now, we'll go through that matchup, talk about that a little bit in depth. We'll go through position by position to see who has the edge, who doesn't, and all that stuff. We're also going to talk about a bunch of games here. We also have on the slate today Loyola and Utah. Just briefly, we'll hit on that one. We have Duke hosting Air Force. That's another big one. Rutgers at Ohio State. I think that's the biggest game of the weekend in the Big Ten now that we've already seen Maryland beat Penn State last night. We'll talk a little bit about that Maryland-Penn State game. I didn't even prepare notes for it, but I did watch it this morning as I was working out, trying to get my swole on. That's a big one, though, Rutgers, Ohio State. We have St. John's, Georgetown. Big game for Georgetown just to see if they can continue their dominance and continue to wreck people in the Big East. Albany and Colgate get together today for an upstate New York battle. High Point, North Carolina play each other for what seems to be the seventh time so far this season. Stony Brook and Hofstra are going to do battle on the island. That should be a big one. Hopkins gets to try to rebound at Michigan. So it's like one of those deals where, hey, listen, we're the two teams that so far look the lowliest in the Big Ten, and we're going to play each other today. So that'll be another big one. We get to see Notre Dame. We've seen everybody in the ACC play at least once now except Notre Dame. So Notre Dame hosting Robert Morris. And that's one of those, what the ACC teams would call a trap game, just because it's like, we should probably beat Robert Morris, but we're not taking them lightly because we know they can come in on any given day and win. But you still go into that game thinking you're going to win. So that's another big one. And then that's probably about it. We got Syracuse, Virginia, and then Navy faces off against Jacksonville on Sunday, so that's going to be dope there. So that is all the crap we are going to talk about. If you are filing in here, we got 5 viewers now. Feel free to ask questions. We'll answer questions as we go along here, but I'll probably get into talking about, let's wait for some more people to show up before we start talking about Cuse and Virginia. So let us talk about the first game that I'm going to talk about here now, just for craps and giggles. I'm trying not to swear in the live streams, not knowing how many kids end up showing up here. I guess it's probably pretty safe here for me to cuss, but I didn't hear. I said craps and giggles, which makes me kind of a nerd, maybe a douchebag a little bit. I'm not sure which. So Loyola is hosting Utah. Utah's sitting at 1-2. Loyola's got their loss. Their loss came to Virginia. They played good though and beat Richmond in their first game. So Lindley sitting here at 7-0. So we knew Lindley was going to score goals. He's going to be dangerous. Utah will have to handle him. Olmstead, I want to see him do a little bit more. I want to see the ball in his stick a little bit more because I still think Aiden Olmstead is Loyola's best player, and I think that in a game like today, Olmstead may be the best offensive player at least to be stepping on the field. So I'd like to get him involved a little bit more in Loyola scoring. Their offense has not looked great, but defensively Loyola has looked solid. And Schaefer, I think it's Sam Schaefer in Cage. He's also played pretty tough, so that's going to be key. I've really liked so far this Tyler Bradbury kid for Utah. He's 7-7 right now after their first 3 games, and he is a nice looking ball player. Jordan Hyde has been he's 6-1. What's Bradbury? And Tyler Bradbury is only a freshman, so they've got. That's what I keep saying about Utah. They just have to keep playing young and dumb, and they'll be good, through the year. But just the no matter what happens for Utah this season, they've got a really young team that has played against some quality teams already. They've already overachieved, I think, in terms of how well they've played. So they just need to keep playing young and dumb. Jordan Hyde 6-1, Jack Barron 3-3, Brandon Wilson 3-3. They have a lot of guys that are splitting their points 50-50. So that is a good sign for Utah. And then as we look at the keepers, Zach Johns in cage has played really well for Utah. So far over their first 3 games and against some pretty decent competition, he's hanging at a 60% save percentage. He's got 39 saves versus 26 goals against. And Schaefer, he's played 2 tough teams in Richmond and Virginia. His save percentage is only 48, but Sam Schaefer is a hell of a goalkeeper. So that's going to be key for both of those games. And then as we look at the faceoff dot, Bailey Savio, one of the best faceoff guys in the country, going against Cole Brams, who has overachieved, I think, as well for Utah. Brams has hung out at 56%. Bailey Savio in his first 2 games is at 50%, but he's faced some solid competition as well. So those are kind of all of the keys. Defensively, I think Loyola has the edge probably, except the way that Johns has been playing in cage for Utah. Maybe that equalizes a little bit. Utah has played tough. They played really good defense for a full game against Denver in their close game against them. So that should be a good one. Oh, we're up to 11 guys here. Let's see here. Bummed I couldn't. Okay, so we got Jesse Bruning saying he's bummed he couldn't head over to U of M to cheer for Hop today. Even our local D3 team isn't allowing fans other than family. I saw that, and I saw them talk about the Navy game today that's being played. They're only allowing 250 fans in the stadium. I think the rule has been 25% capacity, or maybe it's even 50% capacity, or 250 people, whatever's less. So it's a really weird rule that they're going to have to really press their local politicians or their state to try to change it and just say, hey, listen, we can have more than 250 people sit in the stands safely here. So again, everyone who's filing in, I'm waiting for more people to hit up before we start talking about the big game today, Virginia at Syracuse. But we're going to talk next about Duke hosting Air Force. Duke 4-0. You could say they've had a slow start, but here's the key. I mean, Duke is normally good for losing a game already. Duke would normally already only be 3-1. They would have almost assuredly lost the game by now, and they haven't yet. So it's like all these people who are saying, so much for the Duke super team, simply because they haven't won all of the games they've played by the margins people expected them to win by. I say, hey, they're ahead of the game right now because they're 4-0, and normally right now they'd be 3-1, maybe even 2-2, depending. They go down big against Denver, come back and win 12-10. That proves some toughness. They play Robert Morris at home, beat them up 16-12. And, I mean, that game was close, and Robert Morris did a similar thing. They came out and played really tough early, and Duke just bounced back and then beat them by a margin. Mercer, they just put the big hurt on. And actually, that 17-8 margin to Mercer, I've heard a couple of people chirp that, saying they can't believe Duke didn't score 20 on them. Duke, at one point in that Mercer game, pulled their entire first attack line and had their entire second group of attackmen playing the last 4 minutes of the first quarter in that Mercer game. So don't look at a score like that with Duke and say 17-8, they should have beat them by more. Don't look at a like opponent if North Carolina happened to play them and beat them 25-5. It's not the same thing. Duke does not beat teams up by design. They're getting guys reps. They play totally different styles of lacrosse, totally different coaching philosophies. So that's not the same either. And then they beat up on Towson 19-7. Same thing. They could have probably beat them more. They didn't. They played a lot of guys. And I'm still hoping that Towson pulls out another win today. Although, who does Towson have today? Today, Towson has Richmond. So they're probably not going to get a win today, but maybe they could give a little bit of a scare to Richmond. Duke in cage has been one of the places that I was hoping. I think one of the keys for Duke was, you got Mike Sowers. You're going to be awesome here now, but their goalie play has been what's been tough. Upgren is not a bad goalkeeper. He's just not the goalkeeper that was going to win you games when you were playing some of those tough games. And the result is Upgren plays a better game against Syracuse last year. Duke beat Syracuse. Or wait, last year, maybe I'm thinking the year before. I can't remember. The COVID season totally has my brain scrambled. But in terms of goalie play, so far for Duke, it has been spotty. Adler's up to 59% as a save percentage right now. He's got 23 saves, 16 goals against. Upgren, 14-14, so he's at 50% exactly. Now, Air Force, Braden Host has played really tough. Now, once again, Air Force has played some really good teams, so his 50% save percentage or 52% save percentage, I don't think speaks to what he's capable of. Host is capable today of rolling into Durham and putting up 18 saves in the game and keeping Air Force in this. But don't get this twisted. This is not your Duke team who's only playing their second or third game against another opponent, now playing Air Force. Usually it's like their first or second game. This is Duke, who's now 4 games deep already. Air Force is 2 games deep already. This is going to be a different outcome. I think that you're going to see Duke play Air Force similar to how Denver did, and I think you end up seeing Duke win this game by 5-6 goals potentially by the end, and it may be close, and it might be that slow burn to a lead by a margin. So I expect Duke to win, but once again, you never count out the military academies. Those dudes are all savages, and they play pretty crazy lacrosse. We've got 22 guys in here. So I think that means it is now time. Hi, Olive, my daughter. He likes to chirp me here in the live streams, and I don't ever see it quick enough before she loses interest and moves on when she's talking to me. Yeah, let's talk about Syracuse and Virginia now. Let's not yet. Let's hold on. 24 people. We can get it up to 30 people before we talk about Syracuse and Virginia. Let's go to the next game. And another really good one. Actually, I think for me, this is the second biggest game on my book today, and the game that I'm the second most excited to watch here is Ohio State hosting Rutgers. And I mean, Rutgers here, Connor Kirst last weekend, 3-4. And I heard a lot of guys talking about how, he's the midfielder that Rutgers needed. And that's what I was saying as well. But did he not play attack the whole game last week? I could have swore that Kirst played attack all game for Rutgers last week. And that would explain also that 3-4 output. But I still was hearing Ward talk about how he was playing great mid and everything like that. And I don't think so. I think they had him play attack. But anyone who watched that full game, I watched most of it, but I had a couple games on, so I didn't pay super close attention the whole time. So anyone that did watch that, let me know what that looked like. Did he play attack that whole game, or was he floating between two, or am I just crazy? And did he in fact play mid? Because every talking head I heard talked about him playing midfield for him, and I'm just wondering if they didn't do their research or necessarily watch the game. That's big for them, though. Connor Kirst steps on the field, potentially the best player on the field, and he's a geezer at that. Adam Charlambides is always good for Rutgers as well. Shane Knobloch, I liked him. He looked good. He only had 2 goals last week off 7 shots, but a young kid, number 27, watch him for Rutgers. He looked good last week. And then the usual suspects for Ohio State. Trey LeClaire is always a beast, always great at getting to the middle of the field, getting shots off, and scoring goals. 4 goals off 9 shots. Griffin Hughes, Jack Myers, a kid that I liked. I believe he's a freshman, might be a redshirt freshman. He could even be a sophomore, but Grant Mitchell, number 10 for Ohio State, midfielder. I thought he looked good dodging downhill at midfield for Ohio State, so he's going to factor. And they need to get Inacio back. I have not heard anything about whether or not Inacio was going to be playing today. Tarafanko did a good job, and whatever committee they put together to handle the faceoffs did a good job without Inacio being there, but Ohio State is really going to want Inacio playing today because Rutgers looked a little bit better at the faceoff dot last week. Let's look at that then. Faceoff dot so far for Rutgers, they've only got 1 game. Ohio State only has 1 game. Tarafanko was 56%. Sam Faber was 50%. So they kind of went by committee and ended up hanging Ohio State, did it close to 50%. Jonathan Dugenio for Rutgers, he went 48% on the draws. So, I mean, if they end up splitting 50-50, that's okay. If Ohio State gets Inacio back and Inacio goes, 60-40, he wins 60% of them, advantage Ohio State, because offensively these teams are very closely matched. I think defensively these teams are very closely matched. I think in cage, let's see, both keepers in their first games played well. Skylar Walland for Ohio State went for 11 saves, 58% in cage, and Connor Kirst, who I didn't even think Kirst was playing. I had heard that Connor Kirst was going to transfer to Rutgers and that he was going to get middling, probably not play. I figured that he was, he hadn't started before where he played before. Where was he before? Lafayette, Fairfield, some crap like that. And he didn't play. So I was surprised to see him start in cage. And not only that, he started in cage and he stood on his head, going for 15 saves versus 9 goals for a 63% save percentage. That's one of the things Rutgers has been missing since they got rid of, who was the goalie they had 2 years ago, who was really good. Hopefully my cat doesn't mess up my soundboard over there. Oh, I'm not plugged into the soundboard, so it won't matter. So yeah, Rutgers needed a goalie. They've potentially gotten the goalie that they needed. So I mean, here we are sitting here just 2 weeks into the second week of Big Ten play, now kind of reshuffling who's going to be who. Maryland, I think, is still the top team, Penn State looks like they're going to be possibly somewhere down at the bottom. Offensively, Penn State has looked terrible so far offensively. Defensively, I think they've been okay, and I think Kobe Canese has looked all right so far. But I think Maryland is definitely the favorite still, especially because Bernhardt is looking like he's an absolute animal so far. Wisnauskas is always good, but Wisnauskas has been their leading scorer the last 2 seasons. Bernhardt looks like he's on pace to just shred crap for him. So I look forward to seeing that. Once again, Cuse fan. Always hated Maryland with a passion growing up, but at this point I've become a fan. I just like the culture, I like the players, and I watch way too much Big Ten lacrosse to not start becoming fans of some of these teams. So I digress, but Rutgers, Ohio State, I wouldn't even pick a winner in that one. I'd like Ohio State just because they're at home. I would almost say edge Ohio State with Inacio if he's playing, but this is a toss-up here. We got a cat in my desk. This is a toss-up totally here. And I don't want to pick this one because you all know I suck at making picks. I even forgot we have that picks league that a bunch of you guys that watch are probably in as well. And I totally forgot to make my picks this week. So there's my chance of winning the league right down into the toilet here. All right, let's hit some questions up before we get into some more stuff. Jesse Bruning says, gotta love those kiddos. Clean up the language, Dad. Yeah, my kids hear some pretty salty language. I'll tell you a quick story about my kids just for craps and giggles as we wait for craps and giggles again. Shits and giggles as we wait for more people to file in. We had our kids go to a homeschool group for a while. My kids are homeschooled. My wife and I both work from home, and we wanted to travel and do all sorts of other crap without being limited by having them in school. And we're old. We had kids post 30, so it's like, hey, let's hoard as much time as we can with them. So they're homeschooled. And we had them go into a homeschool group. And as part of this homeschool group, there was a lot of hippies and a lot of what we would call, butthurt pansies in my house, where they were the types of people that words were violence and words hurt their feelings and words would totally ruin their days. And I told my wife at one point, I was like, listen, I've been controlling my cursing since we've had the children. And I've seen some of these people, how just a simple drop of a word that they don't like could literally wreck their day. Some of these people were so mentally weak. And so I said, all right, I'm going back to cussing a little bit in front of the kids. And admittedly, I've kind of taken it a little too far. They don't swear, obviously. My son, his first swear word was the F word. But it was actually, he was saying he knew what the F word was and we didn't believe him. So we said to him, what you don't know what the F word is. What's the F word? And he actually said fucks, plural, with an S on the end of it. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I digress. Any other questions here? Any thoughts on UMass Lowell? Jake Lining is my friend's little bro. I have no idea about UMass Lowell, and we are going to have to see them play before I start popping off. What have any UMass Lowell, I think, is still in the America East, unless they were part of that swapping of conferences and all that crap. But I don't know that we've seen America East teams play yet. Has Vermont played? I can't remember. We're going to see this weekend, and we'll talk about some of them here, though. Oh, and Stony Brook. I think they're still in the America East. So 25 users. All right, let's do this. We're going to talk about Syracuse, Virginia now. I got a bunch of crap prepared for this. So Syracuse at Virginia today, 6 o'clock game. Obviously, it's going to be on ESPN. I think everyone will pretty much get to watch that, and anyone who complains about it is going to get slapped, or I would like to slap them. Oddly enough, the series, I had known because I had heard people say it, that this series was tied up at 18-18. So it doesn't get any more even than that as these teams have been playing each other. UVA's won 18, Cuse's won 18. What surprised me even more, and now I do remember this from last year's telecast as well, the score over these 36 games that these two teams have played each other is also tied 466 to 466. So that's just absolutely crazy. Not only are they tied 18-18, the score is even tied over, almost 1,000 goals, and they're split dead even. Doesn't get any more even than that, and that's why this is one of the best rivalries in college lacrosse, bar none. Keys to this game: Cuse has to play much better off-ball defense. Syracuse was terrible off-ball against Army, but that's not surprising. Cuse had a late start. They had issues. They weren't with everybody all the time. No scrimmages, so that Army game was their first scrimmage, and they played kind of like a team that hadn't played yet, and Army had gotten some action. And like we said, the military academies specifically are really geared towards being able to handle this sort of thing, this sort of stress, the procedures that come with it, the discipline that comes with it. So I'm not surprised. I was surprised at the outcome, but I'm not surprised at the outcome in hindsight. But off ball, they have to handle it. Luckily for Cuse, UVA's, they've scored 49 goals so far this season. and less than half of those goals were assisted. So that's a good sign for Cuse. They're going to have to defend Dodgers, which I think they do a little bit better than they do playing off ball. But the off ball issues are things they could shore up. So hopefully they do. And they're very familiar with UVA and their offense and their system. That'll help as well. Attack-wise, UVA definitely has the more productive attack unit. Syracuse's attack over 2020, over those first 5 games, was averaged 10.4 points per game. I was actually surprised at that. That was a little higher than I thought. That was really spearheaded by Scanlon playing so well. UVA's attack over 2020, 12.5 points per game. And then I think edge goes to them. I mean, Syracuse, we have Scanlon, who's really more of a midfielder. I mean, he had his All-American season as a freshman at Loyola as a midfielder. He's rocking attack for us. Rafis hasn't shown us much improvement since his sophomore season where he was our leading scorer. I was hoping he would continue to develop as a Dodger, and he's kind of just been relegated to a transition player, off-ball player for the most part. I'd like to see him be more aggressive. That's all my only complaint with Rafis has ever been. I think he's got the talent and the skill. It just seemed like he was lacking aggressiveness. And then Cook on attack was a non-factor totally last week. So a lot of people have said, what do you think Cuse will do to shore that up? I'm not sure they're going to do anything. I think you may see them give these guys runs. I think one thing you will probably most certainly see is Hiltz get a little bit more time down low there. Maybe he splits with Cook. I had even been calling for maybe drastic measures to be taken because it's not just that first game the attack looked bad. The attack was underproductive last year as well. So one of the things offseason, one of the rumors was that you might end up seeing them bring Tucker Dordovic down at attack. It wouldn't be a bad idea. He's our best player. You want your best player to have the ball and be on the field all the time. I think it kills us that first Cuse midline or that second midline for Cuse plays so often. I know that by the end of the season, that stuff plays well, but it's not going to play well now. And we're playing in a weird season where you need to get wins now, especially with your conference play starting early. So I don't think they're going to shuffle the attack. I think the attack is going to get a chance to prove themselves today. And if they don't prove themselves today, you may see them shuffle. But I mean, UVA, Matt Moore, you have Ian Laviano. They're the 2 best attackmen on the field, I would argue, in terms of you got your Dodger and creator. Matt Moore is incredible at getting to the middle of the field and getting shots off as well. Laviano's great off ball, great spark plug. But then you throw in whoever ends up playing the third spot, whether they end up having Schellenberger down there or the transfer for Merrimack, Bertrand, or you name or Cormier, you name it. They've got better. Their 3 attackmen are always better than Cuse's in terms of just the overall talent. I don't think I feel bad saying that out loud, but I don't think anyone would argue with that. That's really being honest about it. Now, Cuse at the midfield, they have the edge. Obviously, Cuse. Their first midlines in 2020, 10.2 points per game. UVA's first midline in 2020, 6.3 points per game. So a huge difference in the margin. Now, it's tough to gauge that even with UVA's midline last year, because Cormier kind of now playing attack so a little bit more. So they're kind of shuffling guys in and out of the midfield and mixing it up. But their midfield line so far in 2021 is averaging 9+ points per game, depending on who's playing on that line. So about 9+. So they're hanging right below Syracuse. The edge is definitely Syracuse, but UVA's got some really talented mids that can sting you. Now, I do like Syracuse's short stick defenders better than I like Virginia's, but the long pole goes to Virginia as well. They got the better LSM. So let's get into that. Defense with the LSMs, I think the edge, it's a wash to a degree. And I'll tell you why defense, including goalies and LSMs, is a wash. I think it's because edge UVA, they have the more lauded poles. They're going to have the slightly better close defense, I think, even though our defense is capable. But we have the better goalie. And I do not believe that UVA is going to have road today. So we're facing a freshman goalie who's played well so far in the action that he's been called to play in. But I still like our chances against a young goalie. This kid I do not suspect is going to stand on his head in the same way that a Schupler would. Army's goalies always hurt us, it seems, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of trouble from the goalkeeper today, assuming our guys shoot the ball well. So I think defense, close defense, UVA's is a little better. Our goalie is a lot better. So I think that ends up being a wash from a matchup standpoint. I give the edge overall to UVA, though, defensively, partly because they've had more time to work out the kinks, more times to work out the help defense, more time to figure out who can handle their matchups and who can't, who do we have to send help to, who do we not send the help to. So I think the edge legitimately does go a little bit to UVA there. And then specialists, Fogo, short stick D-mids, edge Cuse. Cuse has the better group for winning faceoffs, I think. Although, P.D. LaSala, he might not win as high of a percentage of his faceoffs overall, but he's better at putting up points. So that could become a wash. If they can win 55% of the faceoffs, 60% of the faceoffs, and hold LaSala scoreless, edge goes to Cuse, and that's going to be a huge advantage in the game to them. If they win 60% of the faceoffs, but LaSalle goes 1-1 on the day, which is an absolute possibility, now the edge is automatically back to UVA, even if they don't win as many of those draws. So, but then you look at the short stick D mids, and why I think the specialist is a draw is, you look at Dearth alone. I think, one of the best short stick D mids in the game, especially because in transition he can get things going as well. He can play solid D on the defensive end of the field, but then you get him between the boxes, he'll get upfield. He needs to score a goal today. He's been good against UVA in that, so hopefully he does that today. Hopefully, like other seasons, he opens up the day for us, scoring right off a faceoff or something like that. That would be awesome. Crypto Native is telling us UVA is winning. I'd like to tell him to. I don't know. I'm sure you're fine. And the UVA does have a really good chance of winning this game. I'm not going to lie. So in the end, pick them. I got to pick Syracuse, man. I really do like their chances. I mean, Syracuse they've owned Duke in the last few years, even where Duke has been better. These rivalry games are always huge. It's at the Dome. Once again, Cuse is coming off a bad loss, so I do like Syracuse's chances here. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to win this game, though, without making some changes offensively. So maybe we end up seeing them make some of those changes that we spoke of. Maybe you see Dordovic get a couple of runs on attack to keep him on the field. But it was very apparent Dordovic's the Syracuse's most capable Dodger, not just against LSMs. He was playing against Hudgens, Army's best pole, period, one of the best long poles in the country, and he was able to get looks on him. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I think I'm going with Cuse. I'm hoping Cuse wins. My day will legitimately. I'm that pansy that when Syracuse loses, I will be a big baby the rest of the night. My kids will not like me. I won't be a jerk to anybody, but I'll be quiet and I'll be grumpy, and we'll see all that crap. All right, we got a boatload of questions, so let's get to some questions here. Wyatt raised by Wolves. Interesting point about how even goal totals were. I was thinking 19 and 20. Cuse lost way more quarters in games won, meaning they win the fourth, but played sloppy for 3 on a very regular basis. I think I read that like I was Chinese. No offense to the Chinese, like I was Chinese that barely speaks English, trying to speak a sentence. Mika Bush, I hope Syracuse can pull it off. I think they just need to play really tough. Yeah, obviously they need to play really tough all over the field, and they need to greatly improve on both offense and defense. Not a tall task here. Let's see. Wyatt, raised by Wolves again. Scanlon did not look fully present against Army, and though I've been a huge Rafis fan, he's really struggled to get involved. I agree, totally. Great take, Wyatt, raised by Wolves. You got a dope name, too. But yes, Rafis, I was expecting Rafis to be an All-American. By his senior year, I figured Rafis was going to be a lock for at least a second or third team All-American. He has not been that guy. His development seemed to have stalled at his sophomore year. I know he had some injury and some health issues his junior year. Last year, he looked like he was playing pretty solid. Bunch of assists, was big time assist heavy. But I'm hoping if they're going to be successful, Rafis has to play better. Has to. There's no option. If Rafis doesn't have a good season, Syracuse will not have the season that all of us fans were hoping that they were going to have. Christopher Alley. Come on. If Cuse is within 5 goals of UVA, it will be a good showing. UVA is deep and aggressive on all fronts. Good luck, Orange. I mean, it's not untrue. UVA is capable, and they're a good enough team that they could blow them out. But I mean, it doesn't happen often. If you watch these games over the years, it doesn't matter how good any one of the teams is or how much better the other team is. They typically play close ball games. I do not think you're going to see a 5-goal margin. If you do, know that I will be crying in my beer, for sure. For sure. All right, let's get on to it here. Let's talk about some other crap here. Things to watch for in the ACC this season so far. We've already gotten to see some of the action. Is this the best ACC that we have ever seen in the history of ACC lacrosse? All 5 teams are in the top 10. Transfers turned the already loaded rosters into, what you would call super rosters. Duke has Sowers, Adler, O'Connell all transferred in. O'Connell is the faceoff guy. I haven't even looked, though, to see how O'Connell has fared at the faceoff dot for Duke. But, yeah, a lot of transfers. Notre Dame is the one that got the most transfers. I mean, you say Duke won the transfer battle because they end up landing Sowers. But look at Notre Dame ends up with Kyle Gallagher from Penn, one of the best faceoff men in the country, probably one of the top 3 faceoff guys in the country. They gained him, and they've struggled at the faceoff dot. They haven't been better than 48 to 52% at the faceoff dot in a while. So Gallagher, that's huge for them. Will York from Bucknell. If you didn't watch any Bucknell, you wouldn't know who the hell Will York is. Will York is a baller, a big dude, offensive threat. Should fit in very nicely with what they do at Notre Dame. Sean Leahy from Providence, Kyle Thornton, very good defender from Penn. So Notre Dame improved their roster overall, I think, more than anybody did, just in terms of the quantity of the transfers and the quality of those transfers. And then Cuse with Hapney and Wyckoff. What Hapney looked lost when he came in relief last weekend. Wyckoff, I thought, was going to end up playing more, and I don't know how much he ended up seeing the field here last weekend. No conference tournament. And then Virginia with Charlie Bertrand. That was how they kind of beefed up their roster. No conference tournament in the ACC. I was not aware of that, actually, until I just saw that the other day, that there's going to just be the 6-game round robin, no tournament. They'll crown the conference champ, and I presume that's who gets the automatic qualifier. So that stinks. The downside to this, Syracuse and Notre Dame got a lot less. They just a much later start than everybody else. So here now they're going to cram these games in one a week. These other teams have, they're going to have to play these other teams early in their seasons, as these other teams have already gotten games under their belt. I think Notre Dame we'll look when we check theirs out, but I think they may not get into ACC play until after their third game. But we'll see. But that hurts Syracuse and Notre Dame for just being the last ones to start, being the ones that are in the crappy weather. Although Cuse does have the dome, that's a stupid thing for me to say here. Don't sleep on Notre Dame. That's what I keep saying. Don't sleep on them. I've been saying it all along. Everyone else brought back their rosters and a handful of transfers. Notre Dame was the clear, if everyone else just brought back the rosters from last year, Notre Dame was the clear loser in the ACC. That's not what happened, though. They brought in a face-off specialist, so they improved at the face-off dot. They brought in a really quality defender. They brought in a scorer in York. That's kind of improving yourself at every position, and not every team in the ACC improved themselves at every position as much, I think, as Notre Dame did. So don't sleep on them for sure. Player of the year chatter. Everybody agrees here. I'm thinking if you guys all start popping off about player of the year, obviously, the biggest chance of winning the player of the year goes to Gray and Sowers, and I think it's in that order right now. I think if we ended the season now, Gray wins the Tewaaraton. Sowers would be a very close second, I think, just because of what he's done over his 4 years. However, Matt Moore, he's going to be someone who I think by the end of the season, he's going to end up being in the mix. Tucker Dordevic, depending on how he does for Syracuse, he looked really good against Army. I think in the end with the ACC, whoever gets the ACC, I was talking about the Tewaaraton. I was really trying to just talk about the ACC player of the year, not the Tewaaraton. I don't think Dordovic's going to have a legitimate chance to win the Tewaaraton. I think that's kind of a two-man race at this point. Maybe you get a third guy worked into it. But for a player of the year in the ACC, Moore, Dordevic, Gray, Sowers, you name it, all of them are going to be right up there for consideration. Defender of the year, and now I'm talking defender of the year outside of the ACC, just because I want to talk about this guy, Gibson Smith. Watch Gibson Smith. The dude, as a sophomore for Georgetown on a very good defensive team, put up 106 ground balls, 34 caused turnovers, and 2 goals. He is going to be key for Georgetown, and I like him right now. The way that Georgetown played against Villanova, the way that he played against Villanova, I like Gibson Smith to be in the hunt for Defensive Player of the Year by the end of the year. And somebody else I think who's going to make a big step here is Makar. I noticed Makar covered a cup. Who did he cover? Number 7 there for Penn State, who's one of their big Dodgers now. Who the hell is that? I'm drawing a blank off the top of my head. But Makar, I think this is technically his sophomore season. He started as a freshman. Didn't have stats that you could say Gibson Smith, he tore it up as a sophomore. Makar is a freshman starting for Maryland in the 2019 season. I don't think had that big of a season, but I think he's going to be that guy that's going to step up for Maryland and be their guy. That they always have one guy that's a Defender of the Year candidate, and I think Makar may be that guy for Maryland. All right, let's get back to the questions again. All right. Mad Laxer, with UNC and High Point seeing each other for the third time in a month, including the scrimmage, do you think the familiarity favors the underdog or the blue chips? That's a great question. UNC scrimmaged High Point already once. They played them early in the season when both of them had their Bellarmine game dropped. They were only supposed to play the scrimmage and then a regular season game. Bellarmine was on both of their schedules. Within a week or 10 days of each other, Bellarmine has COVID issues. So they're like, hey, screw it. Let's just play together. We're right in the same state. Easy logistically. So I would have to say probably has to favor the blue blood. I would say that the underdog can always be sneaky. The blue bloods don't necessarily change their game plans as much for the underdogs. I think that what ends up happening now, they've already scrimmaged them once, and that was close. I think UNC won that. They beat them in a close game. I don't think that game was as close overall, as the score indicated, I think UNC really did control that. And every time UNC would get control, High Point would bounce back and kind of do something and get back into the game, get back within a goal, 2 goals, 3 goals. But I think that in the end, it's got to favor North Carolina. North Carolina's now seen them 3 times. North Carolina now has the liberty in this third game of just saying, hey, we weren't going to change our game plan much, but let's try this wrinkle out. Maybe trying to take what's his name? It's early in the morning, I'm finding here, especially when I drink on a Friday night, I end up Asher Knowlting. I end up not being able to recall people's names on the fly. But you may see North Carolina end up saying, hey, let's try a wrinkle where maybe we try to take Asher Knowlting out of this game a little bit more, because that could be practice for doing something like that against a Duke or a Syracuse or whatever. So I think overall it definitely benefits North Carolina seeing this team another time, just because overall they are the much better team. But hey, that's why they play the games, man. And Asher Knowlting and company have been playing well. They're a really good team. They're always going to be hungry and headhunting these big ACC teams that they play. Tom E. Cole, what about the Ivy having no spring sports? Is that a big problem? It's a huge problem. I mean, there are a-holes. The administrators for the Ivy are pansies and a-holes. Everybody else is figuring this out and doing it safely. Why couldn't they? And I have no idea. I don't know the logic behind it. We weren't in those meetings, but I presume it's because you have some douchebags that just don't care about what these kids mean to their institutions. Maybe it's even a thing where it's like, we're above this whole sport thing. I don't think it's that. I think it is just probably the douchebag factor. You know, to pretend that a lot of college admins, especially at these kinds of schools, aren't douchebags, because these guys have been lifers in academia, and you don't end up becoming a lifer in academia and be a well-rounded human being. I used to have a couple business professors that made the jokes that, I forget what it was, but it was something to the effect of, especially in the business world, a business professor is typically a moron if they've never been outside and actually done things. All my business professors where I went to school were all former business owners from the area that had kind of stopped doing what they were doing, and they were teaching on the side and things like that. These were real world business owners, business people. One of our personal finance professors, like the CEO of a huge bank locally in the area. And they all had real world consulting and actual business experience. And I think a lot of the Ivy administrators are lifelong school administrators. And I'm sorry, but generally school administrators on average tend to be kind of douchey. It's just the way that it goes. That was a really bad answer. And maybe I just became a douche for talking like that, but that's what I said. I said it out loud. I can't take it back now. Crypto Native, I wonder what the vibes on campus are like with the cerveza sickness. I don't even know what that means, man. Wyatt raised by wolves again, so they did finish the dome remodel. Yes, the dome remodel is done. I think the dome remodel may have more phases, but the roof is done. I don't think the seating is done. I think that's part of the phases. I think they're going to put all new seating in, and I don't believe is done yet. I think pretty much the main thing that's been done is I believe the locker rooms and a bunch of the other facilities were upgraded before. They just did the roof, and that's all good to go now. And I think the seats and some other internal remodels are going to go from there. Crypto Native, man, you're active today. I wish DeHoga developed more. I agree, but I think that DeHoga wasn't necessarily a development problem. I think it was a team around him problem. DeHoga has a very specific skill set. He is a finisher. He is a in-close dodger. He is not the kind of dude that's going to run around on Albany, carry the ball, put up 7 points a game. He's not a Connor Fields. He is a dude who complements a guy like Connor Fields. DeHoga is going to play pro lacrosse. He's going to be one of the best pro box players ever. He might even get some time in the PLL, although I'm not sure where he would fit in there. But I'm a huge DeHoga fan, and I want nothing but to see DeHoga tear it up here in this final season and then move on to the NLL. He'll make good money playing in the NLL, and he is a box guy. So DeHoga is going to do fine. I'm looking forward to seeing him play today. And let's see. All right. Yes, Crypto Native, political correctness is bleeding us dry. We need to be less politically correct for sure. And I'm not saying be assholes. We don't want to be assholes, but we don't want to be butthurt pansies, as I call my kid. Listen, a lot of people hate the word snowflake. I just love it. I am not a right or a left. I'm a pretty moderate fellow. I vote for Democrats and Republicans and presidential races. I voted for Obama and George Bush. I'm all over the place. So in that light, I'm sitting here kind of just looking at all this thinking like, what the hell is wrong with people? It's like, I don't want to be a total jerk, but I do now feel like we do got to kind of have to start saying things that are offensive again, almost like we all have to be comedians to get these other losers to lighten up. But also, don't think that what you see represented in the media and on social media actually represents America. The social media is pretty much ruled by narcissist losers. So that's what you're seeing there. Most of these people on social media that are popping off, the Twitter mob, it is not a real mob of people. The Twitter mob is primarily a bunch of basement dwelling losers that none of us should really even give two shits what they think. So don't pay too much attention to the Twitter mob. I hear a cat somewhere here chirping me in my office here. Let's see. Top 10 sports. Maryland did a great job on MAC. Maryland D that good or Penn State struggling? Is Maryland's D that good or is Penn State struggling? I watched that game this morning, actually, and I was going to comment on that. I don't know. I was one that was sitting here saying that I thought O'Keefe was going to be fine because his off-ball prowess is off the charts. I think what I'm seeing out of Penn State is it almost seems like they're forcing the ball too much. It almost seems like what I didn't like about their offense is they were definitely a one-trick pony. Amat had the ball in his stick almost 30 to 40% of every single possession. A lot of it was just him running from X up a wing looking for cutters. And all of it was a lot of off-ball motion, and O'Keefe would end up they would run a lot of decoy dodges, a lot of decoy cuts, and then O'Keefe would kind of fill in behind them without Amat able to carry that ball all the time and him because Amat really was more of a two-way threat than people gave him credit for. You're seeing that Penn State offense not generate anything. And when they are generating things, it almost seems like they're doing too much systematically to try to feed the ball to O'Keefe, and that has hurt them badly because they're getting the ball to O'Keefe, but defenses are getting to him, and he's not getting clean shots off. He's not shooting the ball well. I don't think I've ever seen O'Keefe in his career put so many cupcake shots on cage, just so many easy saves. So I think Penn State, once they figure it out, will be much better. But I too am surprised that they've looked that bad. Now, Maryland's defense is good and their keeper's playing solid, but I think that it was a mix of Maryland's defense being good and Penn State offensively just having zero flow. You look at the box score too. They don't have guys putting up points. They have like 4 dudes in the box score in their first 2 games so far, and that's it. And it has not looked good for them for sure. And then Jesse Bruning, DeHoga will be fantastic in box, but I can't see him making any of. Yeah, I agree. Bruning saying he doesn't see DeHoga making a PLL attack, and I agree. It's going to be tough there, but he won't care. He'll get paid well being in the NLL, and that will be all he cares about in the end. All right, let's get to some more games that I wanted to talk about that we haven't yet. We did not talk about Georgetown St. John's yet. Well, let's talk about them. Georgetown is hosting St. John's. Now, I think Georgetown's going to win this game. St. John's has played twice already. I did watch their first game against Hofstra. They beat Hofstra 18-9 in a thriller. I think that was an overtime game where they stuck the bouncer. That's right. St. John scored a really nice bouncer in OT to win that game. But then they turn around, they lose to Providence badly, 16-8. So I do not like St. John's in this game against Georgetown because Georgetown's defense is filthy, and it could be another one of those Villanova massacres. I'm going to predict like an 8-point margin, maybe like a 12-4, 14-4, somewhere in there. I think St. John's will probably put up a couple more points than Villanova because Villanova lost Kirst, their best player, so they're trying to figure out how to play without him. But for the most part, St. John's got everybody back. But I like Georgetown. And like I said, Gibson Smith is a beast. Jake Caraway, 8 goals and 1 helper in that win over Villanova, so he is nasty. Nicky Pekovic. Isn't Nicky Pekovic a Colgate transfer? I don't know. I'm pretty sure Nicky Pekovic is another one of those transfers. Someone looked at, and I don't want people to look stuff up for him, but does anyone know if Pekovic is Colgate? Because that name rings a bell, and for some reason I want to say he played at Colgate, but he's good. Right down the row, you look at the Georgetown box score. It's not just Caraway, running rough shot all over everybody. They filled it right out here. They got what'd they have? Couple guys with 3 points, a bunch of guys with 2. They went right down the roster. So I like Georgetown. I think Georgetown is going to end up being a top 7 team. We may even see Georgetown hit the top 5 at some point this season. I truly believe they're that good all over the field, and they have the best goalie in the country. I think if we look at goaltenders, McElroy was 86% against Villanova. That's a tough one to call because they only gave. Okay, so Micah Bush says, yes, Pekovic did come from Colgate. Thank you, my good friend. Bush is always good for helping me out here. Owen McElroy, best goalie in the country, I believe. And right now he's sitting at 86%. He's not going to hold that, but he's going to be the key in this game. And it looks like Brody Agris for St. John's, he's about 48%. That's not great, not bad though. But I like Georgetown to roll in this one, and I think their spread was pretty high against what is it, Lax? Whoever sets the lines there on Twitter. All right, let's get out of here. Let's get back into another one of these. Colgate, New Albany, upstate New York battle. Colgate has already played. Albany has not. So advantage Colgate there, but I think Albany overall has the better roster. But don't front on Colgate. Colgate only lost to Robert Morris 17-14. So Colgate is going to be a solid team. They had this Mike Hawkins, senior midi. He goes 4-3. And they've got a bunch of guys that put up points. Brian Minikis, 1-4 from Darien, Connecticut. Adam Salvaggio, he goes 2-2. Man, is there anybody in the lacrosse game worse at names than me? I will give myself credit. I just pop off any name I see without consideration of whether I know how to pronounce it before I talk about it, but I have gotten pretty rough on that front. So that Colgate-Albany game, I think Albany's going to win it, but that should be another good one, and I'm going to try to find that stream and watch it. We already talked about North Carolina High Point. I like North Carolina in that game. Hofstra-Stony Brook should be a good one. I'd say advantage Stony Brook. Hofstra 1-1, already with a loss I don't like on their schedule. Stony Brook 2-0. They look good. This Corey Van Janhoven, he looks really good, 6-4, and then it's Dylan Polinetti, 7-2 for Stony Brook. They're both really good. Ryan Tierney did not put up the crazy number of points that he put up in his second game. I think he had 11 points in his first game, only 2 points in his second game. But Tierney, watch for him. So that should be a good game, though. Long Island rivals. Probably they hate each other because they should if they are close in region as they are. And Michigan Hopkins, this is one where it's like, we both stink. So far, neither of us look very good. We both lost bad games last week. Let's play each other and see who really is the worst team in the Big Ten. I think Hopkins is going to win this game on the road. I think that you're going to see Joey Epstein bounce back, come out with like a 4-5 point game. That moving Connor DeSimone down to attack for Hopkins looks like that worked well. He went 3-1 last week. I also think that you're going to hopefully see guys like Evan Zinn and Jack Keogh pull their heads out of their asses and play a little bit better. Cole Williams did not do a whole lot. Like nobody showed up for Hopkins, but in fairness, Williams is trying to play midfield and dodge downhill now, which he kind of did as an attackman anyway. And you got DeSimone now mixing in with the new attackman. You've got the new kid, I forget his name offhand. Oh, shit. What's the new kid that he didn't actually put up any points in this game I see here. So I'm wondering if he even played or if he just got stuck. Ryan Tierney will definitely play in the PLL, Goob Scraggy. I agree with that. So I like Hopkins in this one, but I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be decent overall. And then Notre Dame. This is the one I'm excited to see because we need to see all these teams in the ACC play. Notre Dame is at a huge disadvantage, though. Robert Morris 1-2. Notre Dame did get a scrimmage in. I forget who they scrimmaged. Did they scrimmage Air Force maybe? So Notre Dame has gotten on a field against a team with different colored jerseys, so that's going to help them. But Robert Morris has the benefit of playing 3 games already. Ryan Smith has looked good. Corson Keeley, Jimmy Perkins. So on any given day, they've got a dude who can sting you and play well. But like I said, I think I like Notre Dame in this one, but this should also be another close game, trap game in the sense that Notre Dame should win it, but because of the circumstances with COVID and it just being early in the season, you never know what the hell's going to happen. So I've seen weirder things go down. Let's hit the questions here one more time before we close this out here. Wendell the songwriter, my buddy, longtime friend of the pod. If Cuse learned from Army, they could annoy Virginia. I agree. And it's like for Cuse, I think it's like not even necessarily learning from Army in a sense of if Cuse just learns from the mistakes they made against Army and then maybe watch a little bit. I guess if you watched that Army-Virginia game, you could pull away some useful things. But Army didn't play great against Virginia in that first game either. I think Virginia missed a lot of shots, didn't shoot the ball well. I think that Army game could have gotten a little bit more out of control, and Schupler played well in that game as well. That Schupler's going to keep Army in games all the time because like I said with I'm losing my thought here. Last question. Or no, we're going to do 2 more questions. What happened to Ryan Conrad? He's done nothing in the PLL. That's from Goob Scraggy. I didn't think Ryan Conrad was going to be a huge PLL guy. I think he'll develop, and over time he might be. But Conrad is just why he was so great at UVA is because he's a true two-way mid. He's playing alongside Dox Aitken that also drew attention. So when you have 2 mids like that on the same line, it's going to make it tough. Conrad is going to play in the PLL. I mean, I think will always have a spot as that utility guy, but Conrad's never going to get on the field as an offensive midfielder at the PLL level and just totally trash on dudes, I don't think. It's just not what he does. And then Laxman44, Cuse needs scoring from their attack. As good as their midfield is, they can't be responsible for all the goals. And it's not even just all the goals. They can't be responsible for generating all of the slides in the offense. Big part of offense, draw slides, turn heads, score goals, and they just have not. The attack is not doing that for Syracuse. That's why I'm still a big proponent of seeing number 23 down on attack, even though I don't think that's going to happen. So that is all, guys. We got up to 42. 40, like as I'm sitting here reading off stats so far, 42 viewers, I think was our max, and then 192 playback so far as we're watching here. Average person listened to me ramble for 7 minutes. Not bad. Not bad. This was not my best live stream. I think I did a little bit better last week and the first week. Next week, and I'll just show you a little peek at what we're going to do. We've got our training scene here, and this is going to be kind of the training scene that we rock, and then what we'll do is we'll end up putting the highlights behind it, and then what you will see is me draw on the screen here with a pen as dudes are scoring goals. Bertrand sticking a corner here. So that is what's coming here when we do these live streams moving forward, is we shall get a little bit more into including some film review and crap like that. What I wanted to do today is a film review, but I just didn't get a chance to prep it because my children made me watch a boatload of WandaVision yesterday so they could catch up with me before I got to the end of WandaVision. Is I wanted to really preview the Cuse game. Oh, crap. I still have that. Oh, no. Okay. You're back to me. I wanted to show how badly Cuse played off ball, and I wanted to kind of cover all of the off-ball goals that Syracuse gave up to Army. Just didn't get a chance to do it for today's show, but I'll probably put that out during the week where we'll go through every assisted goal that Army scored and kind of break down what happened in the Syracuse defense and how they could fix it. But then we're going to have UVA, so maybe I end up doing that for the UVA game, depending on how that goes. Maybe if Cuse can pull out the win, what we'll do is we'll say this is how badly they played off ball against Army, and here's how wonderfully they played off ball against UVA. So that is it. Yes, Wyatt raised by Wolves. Conrad is a true college lax legend, and no professional lacrosse status can touch that. College is pinnacle. I agree. Wyatt raised by Wolves, you've come out of nowhere today and have dominated the chat. Wyatt raised by Wolves gets the free t-shirt today. So Wyatt, hit me up via Twitter, Facebook, something like that. Whoever, I forget who it was that got the t-shirt that I haven't mailed it out yet. I'll mail your t-shirt out this week. I've just been stupid busy, and I'm actually going to throw a bonus t-shirt in for your kid in that mix as we talked about. But Wyatt raised by Wolves. I agree. Conrad, I gave Conrad my Midfielder of the Year award, I think in 2019, the year that UVA won the national title, because I think he's one of the best midfielders to ever play at the college level. That, especially that last season that he had, was absolutely nuts. So I agree. I'm a huge Ryan Conrad fan, and I wish that he would tear it up and do more in the PLL. But alas, he doesn't need to. He had a great college career, and none of us give a shit because that's all we care about. And that is for me. I have not bought in fully to the PLL yet. I watched every single PLL game. I have the subscription and all that crap. So I'm a big PLL fan, but PLL could bite me compared to college lacrosse. I just do not. College lacrosse is here, and the PLL is like right down here for me, and then all other lacrosse is like below that. So it's not that the PLL is low on my list of things that I love. It's just that I love college lacrosse this much, and PLL just not as much. So that's it. As always, thank you for watching, guys. Wyatt raised by Wolves, hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and I will get your address and send you off the t-shirt. I just need to know your size is all. I'll send the t-shirt off to the dude that I didn't send it to last week. I forget who it was. Was it Jesse that I was supposed to get it to, the other one? But Wyatt raised by Wolves won today. He surprised me with his questions. They were all on point, and they all gave me things to talk about. That's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you guys to throw me a question that lets me ramble in a coherent manner a little bit longer. So moving forward, we will give the t-shirts to the people that ask me the best questions that cause me to be able to ramble the most. So as always, the crap we're doing, come back tomorrow morning. We will have our big show with the highlights, and we'll recap all the games from today with a big recap for Syracuse, Virginia. We'll talk about that in depth. It should hit about 10 a.m. or so, maybe a little bit after, depending on how much time. So hit that up. So Sundays, every morning is our recaps from the weekend's games. Wednesdays, we're going to talk about all sorts of random crap, and then we always do this live stream here on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So be back. If you're an audio guy, and you haven't found us yet, we're everywhere we have podcasts, but anchor.fm/LaxFactor is our home. And through that channel, you can actually send us an audio message. Not enough people do it, but if you guys would go to anchor.fm/LaxFactor, anybody that sends in an audio question, or any type of comment, whatever you want to say, we'll play those on the show, on Wednesday show typically. So start doing that. Anchor.fm/LaxFactor. And that is it. I am out of here. Wendell, the songwriter, is clapping me off into the sunset. So we're going to end this here. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Come back tomorrow morning for tomorrow's recap show. And then I'll be back Wednesday and all that good crap. So that is it. Thank you for watching. Hoost is out. The LaxFactor Podcast.